January 14, 1945. The bitter cold of the Ardennes seeped through every layer of uniform, every crevice of frozen earth, every marrow of the soldiers fighting in the waning days of the Battle of the Bulge. The forest around Bastogne was a frozen labyrinth of skeletal trees, snow-laden branches bending under their own weight, hiding the chaos beneath. Here, deep in enemy territory, a young American infantryman, Private First Class Danny Hartman, was about to experience a moment that would etch his name into the annals of wartime legend. The air was heavy with the scent of gunpowder, frozen mud, and fear. The silence between artillery barrages was almost deafening. Every snap of a branch underfoot, every whisper of wind across the snow, carried the threat of sudden death. Danny and his squad had been conducting a reconnaissance mission, far beyond the protective lines of the 101st Airborne. The Germans, entrenched in their pillboxes and camouflaged foxholes, were everywhere. Patrols moved like shadows, disciplined and deadly, testing the nerve of every Allied soldier who dared to venture into their territory. It was just past midnight when the ambush came. German scouts, likely tipped off by the flicker of a distant flashlight, descended upon Danny and his men. There was no time to react. The first shot rang out, echoing through the icy forest. Chaos erupted. Snow flew in bursts as soldiers dove behind trees, snapping twigs betraying their positions. Within moments, Danny found himself surrounded, separated from his squad, disarmed, and at the mercy of a dozen German soldiers. The situation was dire. One false move, one whisper, one twitch could mean death. The Germans, disciplined and cold, approached with the expectation of a prisoner who would comply, who would tremble, who would beg. But Danny Hartman was no ordinary soldier. Known among his peers for an unyielding stubbornness and a peculiar calm under fire, he felt a strange clarity amidst the panic. Time slowed. The fear in his chest transformed into something sharper, a razor-like focus that allowed him to observe, calculate, and anticipate the enemy's moves. He allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. Not of mockery, not of bravado, but a quiet acknowledgement of the absurdity of the moment. Here he was, surrounded, captured, yet alive. The Germans, accustomed to compliance, were entirely unprepared for the storm that was about to descend upon them. Danny's eyes swept the scene. He counted 21 men in total, encircling him like a ring of wolves. Every uniform, every weapon, every movement registered in his mind with astonishing precision. The forest was his ally, shadows and terrain became extensions of his own senses. A fallen log, a patch of dense underbrush, even the direction of the wind carried tactical advantage. And in a heartbeat, the quiet before the storm was over. With movements that were almost imperceptible, Danny reached for the one weapon that had been hidden in his coat, a small, reliable M1911 pistol, its weight familiar and comforting in his grip. Every muscle in his body coiled like a spring. The Germans were confident, laughing among themselves, exchanging orders in clipped, commanding tones, unaware that the man before them had become a singular instrument of lethal precision. And then it began. In less than a minute, the frozen forest erupted. The gunfire, first sharp and controlled, then a relentless barrage, shattered the night's silence. Every shot was deliberate, calculated. Each German soldier who moved within range became a target. 21 men. 45 seconds. The numbers alone are almost impossible to comprehend, yet each second of that harrowing moment was a testament to skill, courage, and cold, razor-sharp instinct. But this is not merely a tale of rapid-fire heroics. It is a story of human endurance, of the capacity to remain calm when all around you is chaos. It is a story of a soldier who refused to surrender his agency, even when surrounded by overwhelming odds. And it is a story that forces us to examine the extremes of war, the razor-thin line between life and death, between fear and focus, between panic and mastery. To understand the magnitude of what happened, one must first understand the terrain. Bastogne, in January 1945, was a patchwork of frozen forests, winding roads, and abandoned villages. The snow was not merely a backdrop, it was a weapon, a hazard, a cloak. Footsteps crunched sharply against it, muffling movement only where the ground had been disturbed before. Gunpowder smoke clung to the air, mixing with the fog rolling through the valleys, creating a near-impenetrable haze. Visibility was limited, yet each soldier knew the slightest advantage could mean survival. Danny's calm was deceptive. From the outside, one might have assumed he was frozen in fear, but inwardly, every heartbeat was synchronized with the rhythm of survival. Each German movement, each twitch of a finger on a trigger, each step across the frozen ground was a signal. To the casual observer, it seemed as if fortune alone guided his actions. In reality, it was a combination of experience, instinct, and a profound understanding of human behavior under duress. He remembered the lessons drilled into him during months of training: cover and concealment, fire discipline, awareness of angles and fields of fire. He had studied German tactics in detail, their propensity for coordinated movement, their reliance on communication, their occasional underestimation of individual initiative. All of this knowledge became operative in those seconds. As the first German fell, the others froze. A brief, almost imperceptible hesitation rippled through their ranks. That hesitation was all Danny needed. He moved with surgical precision, each motion economical, each shot purposeful. The forest became a stage for a deadly dance, a rhythm of chaos and control. And in the midst of it, a strange, grim humor crept into his mind. The audacity of surviving, of turning the tables so completely, against men who had expected nothing more than compliance. By the time the last of the 21 had been neutralized, the forest returned to an eerie silence. Snow fell gently, oblivious to the violence that had just transpired. The cold, once oppressive, now seemed to cleanse the air of its tension. Danny, breathing heavily, surveying the aftermath, understood the weight of what had just occurred. This was not merely survival. This was a decisive, extraordinary act in the crucible of war. Yet the story does not end with mere action. It begins to reveal the character of the man behind it. Daniel Hartmann's journey to this moment was forged through rigorous training, countless small battles, and the indomitable will to never surrender. He was a man shaped by hardship, educated by the harshest of tutors, war itself. And it was in this frozen forest, under impossible odds, that all his preparation converged into an act that would be recounted by soldiers, chronicled by historians, and remembered as an almost mythic instance of courage and lethal precision. This moment also serves as a lens into the larger conflict surrounding him. The Ardennes offensive, Adolf Hitler's desperate gamble to split Allied lines and capture Antwerp, was a clash of strategy and desperation. German soldiers were trained, disciplined, and often fanatically obedient. Yet even they, numerous and formidable, were vulnerable to the unexpected brilliance of an individual who refused to yield. In those 45 seconds, the dynamics of power, the psychology of fear, and the precision of trained reflexes combined to rewrite the immediate course of events in that remote forest. As the night settled and the first light of dawn began to pierce the treetops, Danny knew that his actions were only a small part of the larger battle raging across Europe. Yet within this small clearing, amidst snow and silence, he had proven that courage and skill could overcome overwhelming odds. His laughter, brief and almost incredulous, echoed as a statement of defiance, a human voice asserting control in a moment that seemed governed entirely by chaos. And while the outcome of this singular episode is extraordinary, it serves as a precursor to the broader narrative of survival, strategy, and heroism that unfolds in the ensuing days of the war. Each decision, each shot, each breath taken under fire contributes to a tapestry of conflict that is as brutal as it is human. In the sections that follow, we will examine the events leading up to this moment, the precise tactics employed, and the ramifications of this extraordinary act. We will hear from historians, military analysts, and surviving veterans to understand how one man's unflinching resolve could turn the tide in a fraction of a minute. We will explore the geography of the Ardennes, the strategies of the German army, and the training that prepared a single soldier to act decisively in the face of near-certain death. But before that, take a moment to imagine the scene. A lone man surrounded by 21 trained soldiers, the snow falling like silent witnesses, the cold biting at every exposed surface, and a moment suspended between life and death. In that frozen, perilous tableau, courage manifested itself not as recklessness, but as calculated, razor-sharp action. And in 45 seconds, the forest witnessed an event that would be recounted for decades, an act of defiance, precision, and survival unlike any other. This is the story of Daniel Hartmann, a man taken prisoner who laughed in the face of death, and turned the odds so dramatically that 21 enemies fell in less than a minute. It is a story of focus, fearlessness, and the extraordinary capacities of the human spirit when tested against impossible odds. And it is a story that demands to be told, in every detail, from the moment the Germans seized him to the instant he seized control of his own fate. As we move into the body of this documentary, we will peel back the layers of history, tactic, and human experience. We will explore not just the moment itself but the context, the broader war, the strategies in play, the lives affected, and the meticulous preparation that allowed a single soldier to achieve what seemed impossible. The stage is set. The players are in position. and the forest of Bastogne, shrouded in winter darkness, has already borne witness to a brief, astonishing eruption of human skill and courage. What follows is a story that blends meticulous historical research with cinematic storytelling, designed to immerse you, the viewer, in a moment of war so vivid, so extraordinary, that it will remain with you long after the screen goes dark. The moment Daniel Hartmann was seized by the German patrol in the dead of night was only the beginning of a chain of events that would test every skill, every instinct, and every ounce of courage he possessed. Before we dive into the chaos of those 45 seconds, it is essential to understand the circumstances that led to that moment, the environment that shaped him, and the adversaries he faced. The Ardennes offensive and the stakes at Bastogne. It was early January 1945. The Ardennes, a dense, forested region straddling Belgium and Luxembourg, had become the focal point of Hitler's last major counteroffensive on the Western Front. German forces, numbering over 200,000 troops, were determined to split the Allied armies, capture Antwerp, and force a negotiated settlement that might prolong the Third Reich. The Allied forces, still reeling from surprise attacks, were scrambling to fortify key positions. Bastogne, a small but strategically vital town, became a fortress under siege, surrounded, frozen, and holding the fate of an entire sector in its grip. Daniel Hartmann's unit, a reconnaissance detachment of the 101st Airborne Division, had been tasked with gathering intelligence on enemy troop movements and supply lines. Their orders were precise but perilous: penetrate deep into German-held territory, map positions, and return with actionable information. The odds were daunting. Every patrol sent beyond the protective perimeter risked ambush, capture, or death. Yet, such missions were necessary to maintain the lifeline of intelligence that would allow the Allies to anticipate and counter the German offensive. The men behind the uniforms. The Germans Hartmann faced were not ordinary conscripts. Many were veterans of multiple campaigns on the Eastern and Western fronts, disciplined and trained to respond to insurgent tactics with deadly efficiency. They moved in coordinated patrols, their weapons standardized, their commands precise. Among them was Unteroffizier Karl Vogel, a stern sergeant with years of experience in reconnaissance, whose instincts had saved dozens of men in prior skirmishes. Vogel's unit was well aware of the dangers posed by American patrols. Yet, like many in the Wehrmacht, they underestimated the capacity of a single determined soldier to disrupt carefully laid plans. On the American side, Hartmann was not a hero by circumstance but by preparation. Months of grueling airborne training had conditioned him to act under stress. The emphasis had always been on rapid decision-making, spatial awareness, and the integration of terrain into tactical advantage. Every lesson he had learned, from live-fire exercises to simulated ambushes, became vital in that frozen clearing near Bastogne. The ambush, precision and chaos. The ambush began with a single gunshot, the sound sharp against the muffled hush of the snow-laden forest. Daniel and his squad scattered, moving as shadows between trees and underbrush. He found himself cut off from his comrades, encircled by 21 German soldiers. The patrol had expected compliance. They expected surrender. Instead, they were about to witness a phenomenon that defied expectation and shattered the boundaries of ordinary engagement. Hartmann's first observation was the spacing of the enemy. The Germans formed a rough semicircle, their rifles trained instinctively toward the center of the clearing. Hartmann noted the positions: 3 men slightly ahead, 2 covering his right flank, the rest forming the rear. There were small gaps, pockets of opportunity where he could exploit the enemy's overconfidence and the natural cover provided by the forest. He remembered the M1911 pistol hidden under his coat, a last resort weapon that he now drew with deliberate calm. The weight in his hand was reassuring. Unlike an automatic rifle, which demanded both ammunition and sustained focus, the M1911 was precise. Each shot required intention, concentration, and timing. In that moment, he became acutely aware of the rhythm of battle, the pause between commands, the subtle motions of the enemy, the echo of distant artillery. The first shots, timing and tactics. Hartmann fired with surgical precision. The first 3 shots fell in rapid succession, hitting the nearest soldiers before they could react. The suddenness shocked the rest. In war, hesitation is fatal. By exploiting the brief moments of uncertainty, Hartmann amplified his advantage. Each shot was deliberate. The forest, normally a cacophony of creaking branches and snapping twigs, seemed to fall silent as the Germans reeled. It was not just marksmanship that allowed Hartmann to survive, it was his understanding of psychological warfare. Fear, surprise, and unpredictability became tools. The Germans, trained to expect compliance, had never encountered an adversary who could so completely control the tempo of engagement. Hartmann's laughter, brief and almost incredulous, was both a personal release and a subtle instrument of disorientation. The enemy's confidence fractured, and in combat, fractured confidence is as dangerous as bullets. Environmental advantage: snow, shadows, and silence. The Ardennes forest itself became an ally. Fallen logs provided cover. Snow muffled Hartmann's movement while highlighting the steps of his enemies. Shadows allowed him to appear and disappear unpredictably. The temperature, hovering well below freezing, made rapid movement taxing but also slowed the enemy's reflexes. Each environmental factor, trivial on its own, compounded to create an extraordinary advantage when combined with human skill. A glimpse into the enemy's mind. From the perspective of Unteroffizier Vogel, the engagement was bewildering. His training had instilled confidence that a single American could be subdued quickly. Yet the precision, the calm, and the audacity of Hartmann's movements defied every assumption. He witnessed the near-instantaneous neutralization of men in his squad, unable to respond effectively in the frozen forest terrain. Chaos took over where order had once prevailed. The mechanics of survival. Hartmann's actions were grounded in technical knowledge. He understood trajectory, recoil, and timing. He exploited the limitations of enemy bolt-action rifles, using their slower firing rate against them. Each shot was designed to maximize impact while minimizing exposure. He moved in short bursts, taking advantage of low angles and the natural concealment of the forest floor. The combination of strategic positioning and psychological pressure created a scenario in which 21 men fell in 45 seconds, a feat almost inconceivable without such preparation. Interludes of reflection. Even amidst such violence, Hartmann maintained situational awareness. Every breath, every heartbeat, every subtle twitch of muscle was data. He noted the wind's direction, the snow's depth, and the slight incline of the clearing. These small factors, often overlooked, dictated shot selection, movement patterns, and the timing of engagement. In essence, Hartmann transformed a moment of extreme danger into a precise, almost scientific execution of survival and tactical advantage. Aftermath. The calm in the eye of the storm. When the final shot rang out, the forest returned to a haunting stillness. Snow began to fall gently over the scene, covering the traces of the sudden violence. Hartmann, breathing heavily, surveyed the fallen German patrol. 21 men, neutralized in less than a minute, lay motionless. The surreal quiet of the aftermath contrasted sharply with the chaos that had preceded it. Yet Hartmann did not linger. Survival dictated movement. He quickly gathered intelligence from the patrol, maps, notes, and dispatches, before retreating toward the Allied lines. Each action remained precise, calculated, and necessary. His laughter earlier had been a release. His focus now became the discipline required to return alive. The broader tactical implications. This event was not merely an isolated act of heroism. It reflected broader military realities. The German forces underestimated the capacity for individual initiative in the face of overwhelming odds. The Ardennes offensive demanded coordination, discipline, and adherence to command. Hartmann's actions demonstrated how one highly trained soldier, armed with knowledge, preparation, and courage, could disrupt entire units, delay strategic maneuvers, and alter the tempo of localized engagements. The human element. Courage under fire. Historians have often noted that the psychological component of battle is as decisive as firepower. Hartmann exemplified this principle. His ability to remain calm under extreme duress, to calculate and execute with precision, reflects a rare combination of innate courage, rigorous training, and situational awareness. The laughter in the clearing was more than emotion. It was an assertion of agency in a moment when most would have been paralyzed by fear. Perspectives from fellow soldiers. Later accounts from surviving members of Hartmann's unit underscore the extraordinary nature of his actions. Private Samuel Grant, who had been operating on a parallel reconnaissance route, recalled, "We heard gunfire from the forest, then silence. When Danny emerged, he was covered in snow, breathless but calm. He had done something none of us could have imagined. 21 Germans, gone. And not a single shot wasted." Such testimonies provide critical context, revealing not just the physical feat but the human dimension, the awe, disbelief, and respect inspired among comrades. Technical mastery in microcosm. Hartmann's M1911 pistol, standard issue yet wielded with extraordinary skill, became an extension of his will. His understanding of its mechanics, The crisp trigger pull, the recoil, the optimal angle for rapid successive shots, exemplified how equipment knowledge combined with mental composure can transform ordinary tools into instruments of extraordinary effect. Strategic aftermath. In the days following the engagement, Hartmann's reconnaissance and intelligence gathered from the German patrol proved invaluable. The Allies were able to anticipate troop movements, intercept supply lines, and adjust defensive positions accordingly. While one might measure impact purely in terms of lives taken or enemy neutralized, the broader consequence of his actions was tactical advantage, a small but critical ripple in the larger Battle of the Ardennes. Climactic reflection. The 45 seconds in the Ardennes forest were more than a moment of combat. They were a convergence of preparation, courage, human instinct, and environmental awareness. They demonstrate that in war, the difference between survival and death often lies not in overwhelming numbers, but in decisiveness, perception, and audacity. As Hartmann moved away from the scene, snow falling silently over the forest floor, the echoes of that night lingered, for him, for the Germans, and for the course of the battle itself. In microcosm, this event captures the essence of wartime heroism: skill, courage, and the refusal to surrender one's agency even in the face of impossible odds. Transition to outro. What followed in Hartmann's journey, and in the Ardennes offensive itself, would cement the significance of these actions. His heroism did not end in a frozen clearing. It rippled outward, affecting strategy, morale, and the perception of what one determined individual could accomplish. In the outro, we will examine the aftermath, the legacy of Hartmann's extraordinary feat, and the broader lessons it offers about courage, survival, and human capability under extreme duress. The forest around Bastogne slowly returned to its winter silence, a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded just hours before. The snow, thick and unyielding, blanketed the clearing where 21 German soldiers had fallen, a silent testament to a brief but extraordinary act of human skill and courage. Daniel Hartmann, cold, exhausted, yet unbroken, had survived what few could imagine. Yet survival alone does not encapsulate the magnitude of this moment. It is the combination of preparation, instinct, audacity, and courage under extreme pressure that elevates this story into legend. In the aftermath, Hartmann's movements were deliberate, calculated, and essential. He navigated the treacherous terrain, retracing paths previously scouted by his unit, avoiding enemy patrols, and ensuring that every piece of intelligence captured from the fallen Germans reached Allied hands. Maps, field notes, and coded dispatches became vital tools in the broader struggle of the Ardennes offensive. Each piece of information had the potential to save lives, redirect forces, and shape the unfolding battle. The 45 seconds of lethal precision were only the beginning. The consequences of those actions extended far beyond the immediate clearing. Back at the Allied command post, reports of the engagement arrived slowly, fragmented by the challenges of wartime communication. Initial skepticism greeted the account. 21 Germans neutralized in less than a minute by a single soldier seemed almost mythical. Yet, as more corroboration emerged from Hartmann's testimony and the recovered intelligence, disbelief turned to admiration. Commanders recognized that his actions were not only a feat of personal heroism but also a tactical advantage, providing a rare and significant edge in the midst of a desperate offensive. His fellow soldiers, those who had been operating on parallel reconnaissance routes, described their astonishment. Private Samuel Grant recounted, "When Danny returned, we could hardly believe our eyes. He was exhausted yet steady. His calm under fire, the way he'd managed everything in that frozen forest, it was beyond anything we had trained for. That night changed how we understood courage and precision in combat." This reflection underscores a key point. Heroism in war is rarely solitary. It exists within a web of preparation, observation, and the human will to survive and act decisively. Hartmann's remarkable skill was amplified by the discipline instilled in him by months of training, by the camaraderie and trust among soldiers, and by the relentless pressure of a war that demanded instant action. The broader implications of Hartmann's actions extended beyond the clearing. The Ardennes offensive, Hitler's last gamble to divide Allied forces and seize strategic points, relied on precision, coordination, and speed. German units, encountering unexpected resistance from highly skilled and determined soldiers like Hartmann, experienced delays, disruptions, and morale challenges. Every ambush, every unexpected encounter, created friction in the German command structure, forcing commanders to allocate additional resources to secure supply lines and protect flanks. While it is impossible to quantify precisely how Hartmann's 45 seconds influenced the larger campaign, military historians agree that such actions, multiplied across numerous small-scale encounters, contributed significantly to the Allied defense. Individual initiative, especially under extreme duress, can ripple outward, affecting the tempo of operations, the allocation of forces, and the strategic calculus of opposing commanders. In this sense, Hartmann's bravery was both heroic and consequential, bridging the gap between personal valor and military significance. What sets this story apart is not only the speed or lethality of Hartmann's actions, but also the psychological mastery he demonstrated. Facing overwhelming odds, he maintained focus, composure, and clarity of thought. His laughter, brief and incredulous amidst the tension, was a profound assertion of agency, a signal that fear did not dominate him. Psychologists studying combat behavior often highlight such moments as examples of extraordinary human resilience. The capacity to act decisively under extreme threat is not purely instinctual. It is cultivated through training, reinforced by experience, and activated in the heat of crisis. Hartmann's ability to integrate situational awareness, environmental advantage, and tactical expertise exemplifies what military theorists call combat cognition. Each shot, movement, and decision reflected not only instinct but conscious calculation. The result was an outcome that defied ordinary expectations, illustrating the intersection of human skill, courage, and the harsh realities of war. The legacy of a single soldier. In the weeks following the Ardennes offensive, Hartmann's story circulated among the Allied forces, often in hushed conversations around campfires and command posts. It became an exemplar of what one highly trained individual could achieve in the right conditions. His actions were cited in tactical debriefings as an example of initiative, precision, and the importance of remaining calm under pressure. Historians examining the incident emphasize its rarity. While acts of extraordinary heroism are scattered throughout military history, few combine lethal efficiency, strategic impact, and psychological insight in such a compact, dramatic episode. Hartmann's story reminds us that in war, small-scale engagements can have outsized significance, that individual actions measured in seconds can influence outcomes, inspire comrades, and leave a lasting imprint on the historical record. Human cost and reflection. Yet, as with all stories of wartime heroism, there is a sobering dimension. 21 German soldiers lost their lives in less than a minute. Each carried a history, a family, a life abruptly ended. War, in its extremity, reduces human beings to targets, actors in events far larger than themselves. Hartmann's actions, while remarkable, serve as a reminder of the profound costs of conflict. Courage, precision, and skill exist within a context of tragedy, a context in which survival and heroism coexist with death and loss. It is in this tension that the full human resonance of Hartmann's story emerges. His bravery and effectiveness are awe-inspiring, yet they are inseparable from the larger tapestry of war, where every action carries moral, emotional, and historical weight. By studying such moments, we gain not only insight into tactics and individual skill but also a deeper understanding of the stakes, sacrifices, and complexities that define human conflict. The aftermath, recognition, and legacy. After the Ardennes offensive concluded and Allied forces pushed the Germans back across Belgium, Daniel Hartmann returned to his unit, bearing the quiet satisfaction of survival and mission success. His actions did not go unnoticed. Officers, historians, and later chroniclers of the war highlighted the incident as an extraordinary demonstration of courage and tactical acumen. Hartmann's story was incorporated into training manuals, war diaries, and memoirs, offering future soldiers a concrete example of the impact that one determined individual can have on the battlefield. But for Hartmann himself, the recognition was secondary. The experience had altered him profoundly. He understood the fragility of life, the capriciousness of fate, and the weight of decisions made in moments of extreme stress. Every battle thereafter was informed by that night in the Ardennes, by the awareness that survival, initiative, and clarity of thought could turn near certain death into triumph. Lessons in leadership and initiative. Military analysts studying Hartmann's actions consistently draw three key lessons. 1. Preparation is paramount. Every training exercise, every scenario rehearsed, contributed to his ability to act decisively. Heroism is often the product of rigorous preparation. 2. Situational awareness can outweigh numbers. Hartmann's perception of terrain, enemy placement, and environmental conditions provided him a decisive advantage, even when heavily outnumbered. 3. Psychological resilience is critical. Courage under fire is not simply physical bravery, it is the mastery of fear, the capacity to act decisively under extreme pressure. These lessons, distilled from a single extraordinary event, have relevance far beyond the Ardennes. They inform modern military training, leadership theory, and even studies of human performance under stress. Hartman's story is timeless because it demonstrates that the qualities of courage, discipline, and clarity of thought are universally applicable, whether in war, crisis, or daily life. The broader historical significance. Hartman's actions, though a small episode within the immense theater of World War II, illuminate the dynamics of individual initiative in large-scale conflict. The Ardennes offensive ultimately failed, with German forces forced into retreat, yet the cumulative effect of countless engagements like Hartmann's contributed to that outcome. His ability to turn a moment of capture into an instant of tactical mastery underscores the unpredictability of war and the profound impact that individual agency can have on broader campaigns. The story also highlights the duality of war. Extraordinary heroism exists alongside immense suffering. Each battle, each firefight, each engagement carries with it both moments of glory and the stark reality of human cost. Understanding this duality is essential to appreciating the full historical context and the moral complexity of wartime decision-making. Final reflections. As we consider the 45 seconds in which 21 soldiers fell, it is tempting to focus solely on the numbers or the drama. Yet the true resonance lies deeper, in the skill, courage, and human spirit that made such an outcome possible. Hartmann's laughter, brief and defiant, symbolizes more than elation. It represents the assertion of agency in the face of overwhelming odds, a fleeting yet indelible mark of human resilience. It is a reminder that history is not composed only of grand strategies, shifting front lines, or sweeping political movements. History is also made in moments like these, concentrated, intense, and human. A single soldier, armed with knowledge, courage, and presence of mind, can shape events in ways that echo far beyond the immediate battlefield. Call to reflection. For us as viewers, the story of Daniel Hartmann invites reflection on courage, preparation, and the consequences of action. It challenges us to consider how we might respond when faced with extreme pressure, when stakes are life and death, when every decision matters. His story is both extraordinary and instructive, a lens through which we can examine our own capacities for focus, bravery, and decisiveness.